let's move on to asking the question. I think I made a comment at some point in passing, and you made a point of underlining that. I said, I'm not that interesting of a character, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
you actually gave me a loving challenge. He said, I would advise you to relook at that, right? So say more about that, because I would assume, and at that point, what I share with you is if you have any level of humility, probably most people think that they're not that interesting to look at. So as a director trying to get the most out of someone that you're doing documentary with, how do you, well, one, have them set aside that believe that they're not that interesting? Well, why don't we start there?
Yeah. Yeah. It's in a documentary perspective, you really just want them to just be themselves, right? Because the second that they try to perform for the camera or do anything like that, it's just inauthentic. Like it's what it is, regardless of your job or your role or anything like that. It's the authentic. Humans like to watch humans being humans, right? We love the human experience. So it's more about just the amount that they can. Man, it's interesting. It's getting out of your own way again. Like what a theme on this podcast so far. But it's really like the degree to which they can get out of their own way and just be themselves relates to more. It's more compelling content.
I see. So it's not even interesting or not interesting, just be you. Because by saying I'm not that interesting, now you're diminishing your light, you're diminishing your authentic self. By saying I'm more interesting than what I'm actually am, now you're just artificially boosting in the performance or how you react to certain things. Is that accurate?
I think so. In my personal, I mean, I've never been someone for reality TV. There is something to be said about like bright lights. Like we still have the monkey brain at the end of the day that says that someone being loud or the stimuli is going to attract more eyeballs, right? But from an interesting like story perspective, like truly everybody has a story, and in my opinion, it's the job of the filmmaker or whoever's framing what we're watching. Maybe not all of it. The hero, for example, somebody doing the authentic thing might just sit around and watch TV, right? But it's what are you framing it against? What are you juxtaposing that with? So it is, in that sense, it's the storyteller's role. Or if you're applying this to yourself, it's in fact, it would be your job to, how am I framing my behavior in a way that it's the backdrop, right?
Yeah. So I was actually on a call with James Altucher. He's a very popular author, investor, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he said that he just recently finished filming a documentary about choosing yourself, right? One of the books that he wrote. And a lot of it is of shooting him doing his everyday stuff, right? And I asked him the question of, when you shoot this video, who do you have in mind and so forth? He said, well, I'm just doing it. And he let it slip that I don't know how interesting it is for the audience. I hope it is. So that's how he was thinking about. So as a filmmaker, do you then just basically have that faith and trust that whatever footage you gather about this subject, at the end, you can actually make it interesting?
Yeah.
Or you're trying to make it interesting in the creative process. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's obviously you want to make it interesting while you're capturing the footage. What I'm hearing you say in your question is, or do you want to make it interesting while you're filming, or do you want to make it interesting while you're editing?
Yes.
So it's like, the more you're in your head about, it's kind of like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit to believe that it's not interesting. It's the same thing as your glass of water example you used a minute ago, right? Where if your belief that it's going to be weird for you to ask for water from your host, it's going to come across from the host that like, this is a weird request.
Right.
Right. So you're creating that it's not interesting by believing that you're not interesting. You know? So if you can just let go of that old belief, let that die off, have your own apostasis moment, and you just document and you just be authentic. What's going to happen, especially like no one becomes a star overnight, right? So the more that you release content from that authentic place, right? Or if you're a business, right, the more communication you can put out from an authentic place, the more that the audience is going to be able to build a relationship with you, an authentic relationship, so that they say, I know exactly who CK Lin is. I'm tuning in for CK, right? Because I know him, because I've seen, like, I get his authenticity from the videos or the podcasts or whatever. I get who he is. He's not putting on any airs for me.